What's up, everybody? Let me get the tweet out, and then I will be right back with you. Oh, man. Clicked in the wrong spot. Sorry, hold on one second. All right, and I need to share this on TrueTrader. Let me get the link. What's up, guys? All right, I am present, reporting for duty. Sorry about the hiatus from last week's Sunday prep, but I was out off location and unable to get it filmed. But we'll make up for it this week. I promise you guys. I promise. Make sure all the sounds are correct. How's your guys' weekend been so far? What's up, Kevin? What's up, Sam? Hey, what's up, Josh? I knew Josh would be here. The Chiefs ain't playing. Awesome, nice. Thanks for joining me, Steve. I'm gonna make sure I don't let you guys down this week. This should be a pretty good prep. All right. There's Raul. There's Raul. Give it a few minutes, maybe a little more than 2 minutes. We'll let people come in, and then we'll get the show started. As always, guys, if you can, retweet the tweet I put out, and share the live stream link if you can. Wherever else you think you can share it, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or wherever you think you got somebody that would benefit from hearing this stuff. Oh, you're welcome, Steve. I'm happy to hear that you guys find value in it and that you take something away from it. Last weekend, I know Josh is in here, and I know some of the other guys from ATCC probably will watch this. Last weekend, I was invited to a conference up in Temecula with the Alpha Traders Country Club. It's a group of guys that are more involved in the blockchain side of stuff. They do crypto and NFT stuff or whatever, but they're good dudes who I know through TrueTrader, and who have started their own little community. And I was blessed enough to be invited to that conference, and that's where I was last weekend. Took my family up there. It was a really awesome event. So if you guys are interested in that stuff, check out Alpha Traders Country Club. Sorry, not Community Club. But yeah, that was a great event. Had a good time, guys. All right, we are approaching that 5 p.m. market time hour, so let's go ahead and get this kicked off. As always, let me start real quick and get the housekeeping out of the way. If you guys don't have a broker you can trust, check out Cobra Trading. Trust me, hands down, best customer service I've ever experienced. And as you've been seeing online lately, there's people that are kind of pointing out the difference in prices on locates for the short sellers in the small cap space. Cobra's pretty often the cheapest for their locates as well, so really emphasize checking them out. There is a link in the description. It'll get you 25% off your commissions, which adds up. It'll also get you a free month of whatever platform you choose. I personally like DOS, but they have Sterling. They also have, I believe, their own Cobra trading platform. Spikeet, these guys created a platform that allows you to pull historical stock data dating, I think, up to 25 years back. So instead of collecting data manually on things that you on setups that you think might have an edge to exploit in the market, you can do it retroactively. It saves a ton of time, guys. There's a link in the description for that. Scriptstotrade, these dudes make indicators and tools for Thinkorswim and TradingVue, and they have a subscription-based service where you get the whole suite. I think it's 13 indicators that are all top-notch. But if they don't have what you're looking for, reach out to them. They can create whatever it is you can dream up. These guys are amazing. Can't speak highly enough about them. TraderVue, if you're not tracking your own performance metrics, you need to. The insights you can glean from that, are invaluable. So if you want to check them out, there's a link in the description. They also offer, if you only import 100 trades or less per month, they actually have a free version of it, right? There's obviously a subscription-based version of it as well, which comes with a lot more bells and whistles. So check them out, guys. And last but not least, earnings, guys. Earnings coming out this week. Last week was a huge week, right? We had the Meta, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft were the big ones, right? There were some others as well, but those are the major ones. And then you can see right here, this isn't much. There isn't much missing from this week. Like, it's a full week of back to back bangers. All right. So if you are trading something, familiarize yourself with this list, because it's your job to know what's coming out, guys. All right. And I actually don't have an infographic for this, but make sure you guys understand, I believe it's the Fed this week, right? So the FOMC and the rate hike decision is coming up this week. Make sure you guys don't get blindsided by that. All right. Got that done as fast as I could so that I can get right into our topic today, guys. So I'm gonna intro the topic via a tweet that I tweeted out 2 weeks ago, I believe. Yeah, October 13th. Okay, remember, subconsciously, your actions always fall in line with your identity. Work on changing your identity to that of what you aspire to. Focus on the right beliefs, attitudes, and values. If you don't identify as a highly disciplined individual, then good luck behaving like one. All right, so where did that tweet come from? Let me give you some backstory. So I went to Traders for a Cause end of September, first few days of October, and as always, you're surrounded by some of the biggest traders in the game, guys I'm friends with, new faces that I'm just meeting. I mean, it's such a great event. It's really something to be surrounded by some of the top bangers in the industry, right? But every single year I go, the trip home is a time for reflection, right? And the last few years of my trading career, if you follow me on Twitter or social media, you'll probably be familiar with the fact that I'm really big on making sure that you enjoy your life. Don't just be a slave to the screen. I always hashtag gratitude is the attitude. You'll see me golfing a lot, taking my kids to do sports and stuff. And that's amazing, and that is a very, very important part of my life. But in order to really maximize that, other things do have to kind of be deprioritized a little bit. And when I was out at Traders for a Cause, one of my good friends, Joseph Gasparino, or I probably butchered his last name, he's Italian, JTrader on Twitter. We've been friends for a long time, but this event in Vegas was the first time we actually got to meet face to face. And if you guys know him from Twitter, right, he's a monster of a human in size, right? He's as big as any professional bodybuilder you've ever seen, as well as Zach from Avidity Fitness, and people like Lance Brightstein, right? From he's over at S&B now, kind of advising some of their traders. Like, surrounding yourself with guys like that. The trip home from Vegas, when I was reflecting, was one of those times where I was like, man, I've been kind of cruising through my trading career in terms of, once you finally hit a certain level, there's the ability to take your foot off the gas a little bit and say, look, having a certain type of lifestyle is enough, right? And I don't need to aim for higher. And that's fine if that's you, right? But something struck me, right, where I was just like, I don't want to retire or get so old that I'm, maybe my brain function goes down to the point where, trading's not viable or whatever. But, when you get to that end of your career, I don't want to look back and have these what ifs. And I really wasn't at peace with that. And so what I always do when I come back from Traders for a Cause is I re-list out all my goals and ambitions, right? And it's kind of like my New Year's resolutions. I just do them a few months early. And if I'm a pretty firm believer that you shouldn't put things off, right? So it's good to get it done in October, right after you're re-energized and reinvigorated by being surrounded by so many amazing people. And so as I started writing down my goals, I always break them down into sections of my life. So family, relationships, marriage, financial, career, health, fitness, right? And I started to realize that let me give you a little bit more backstory, right? So your values, attitudes, and beliefs are what come together to form what we have is this subconscious identity, how we view ourselves. And your identity basically guides your behavior subconsciously. So, if you think that you're an undisciplined person, or you view yourself as that subconsciously, then it will be, your behaviors will fall in line with that. And so, it wasn't that I was undisciplined. In fact, even when I'm just cruising through life, doing the gratitude is the attitude thing, I'm still probably more disciplined than most people you'll meet in terms of my workout regimen and never missing things and always being early to things. Like, I'm not the type of person that shows up late to stuff, and I get shit done. But this is trading, guys. This is dog eat dog. It's as competitive as it gets. There is no minor league. When you show up to the market, it's you versus, the most successful, well-capitalized, brilliant people in the market, and they're all coming for your capital, right? That money that they make has to come from someone else. And if you're not at the top of your game, you really kind of are playing yourself to think you're going to show up and take someone else's money. So, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my goals, and there's just something kind of irking me. And what I realize is that, if you're not living your life in accordance with your values, you will find this conflict, this internal conflict. And, even though I've been enjoying my life to the fullest, enjoying watching my kids grow up, being able to be there for them and stuff, there's just been this thing in the back of my head and I couldn't figure out what it was. So I started realizing I needed to realign myself. And what I mean by that is, ask myself those hard questions. What is it that I value? What are my core beliefs? What are my attitudes towards different aspects of my career and goals, right? And, just want to kind of show you where I'm at and what that's kind of led me to where I'm at now in my journey. So things that I value, right? I've always been one of those people that truly value pushing myself and testing my limits. I like to be a role model for my kids, right? And I don't want to do it by just talking. I want to lead by example. One of the things that I do highly value is helping other people I see struggling. I know people here that probably think that, oh, you're talking about the trading world and being like a moderator in a room. No, I just mean, like, if I see somebody that has their hands full and they're coming out a door, I'm the guy that's making sure I'm there to open the door for them. Things as small as that, all the way up through, yes, helping struggling traders, but it's just because it's one of my core values. And another thing is competition. I really do value competition. One of my core beliefs is that the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, right? I believe that the growth mindset is closer to what reality is. I do believe that that you can learn things and progress through hard work. Another core belief is that this is a big one, guys. True happiness and fulfillment comes from growth and progress. And growth comes from pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, okay? And one of my closely held attitudes is one of extreme discipline in every aspect of my life. So, hearing myself say those out loud and then looking back into how I've been living my life in terms of my trading and stuff, it was no surprise at all that there was this internal conflict, because even though I was trading and trading well, I wasn't pushing myself. And even though I was going to the gym very regularly, when I'm at the gym, I wasn't pushing myself. Even though I'm eating healthy, I wasn't really eating like, as if I was trying to progress in my health and fitness, right? In terms of my relationships, I wasn't extending myself enough to the point where I was growing. And so that's where this conflict was coming from. And since then, since I've been home from Traders for a Cause and have identified these things, right, I've made adjustments. And what I'm trying to get, the information I want to kind of share today is some of the things that I believe have helped the most in that. And forgive me if you guys aren't big gym guys, if you don't like to lift weights or whatever, just take whatever I say and apply it to whatever you do. That's not a career, but just something you do outside of work that is pushing yourself, right? Whether it's, if you're a long distance runner, or you like to swim, or you're a CrossFitter, whatever it is, right? But I have to relate it to what I do, right? And so I like to lift, and so I'm at the gym very frequently. And I listen to a lot of motivational podcasts and Spotify channels. And one of the things I heard a guy say was, the gym is one of the easiest places to really reinforce whatever kind of identity it is you want to have. And if you want to have this identity of extreme discipline, the gym is a really easy place to build that identity via, being that guy that always does one more rep. And it sounds really silly and simple, right? But what you're doing is, say you're at the gym, one more set, one more rep, maybe 5 more pounds on your bench, whatever it be. You're reinforcing that in your subconscious. And what happens is it spills over into all the other areas of your life. And, if you can be extremely disciplined and be that guy that constantly is pushing himself in one area of his life, then you're going to see it filter out into the rest of the other areas, right? So, and that's what the tweet was kind of getting at. Good luck trading with extreme discipline, let me circle back real fast, and this is why this is so important. Because in order to be the best of the best, in fact, in order to not even be the best of the best, in order to even be a profitable trader, one of the things you must be is extremely disciplined, right? We talk about this all the time. You can make money today by maybe not stopping out where you're supposed to stop out and adding to a loser, and then the trade works, and maybe you make money today. Or you can follow your rules and be disciplined and maybe lose money today, but guarantee yourself the ability to make money for the rest of your future. Okay? And so that's where the discipline part becomes so important. And that's what the tweet was really getting at, was this concept of good luck being a disciplined trader if you don't have that discipline, extreme discipline, in all the other areas of your life, right? And good luck pushing yourself to see how far you can progress if you don't do it in other areas, right? And so, and I want to be very, very clear here when I talk about this, that I'm not talking about competing. I don't want, I'm not trying to be better than Lance at trading. I'm not trying to be better at JTrader. I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be as buff as Zach from Avidity Fitness. No, it's about you versus you. It's about the guy in the mirror. It's about getting 1% better every single day. That's what matters. And if you do that, if you push yourself, if you try to grow and get outside of that comfort zone every single day, 3, 4, 5 months, a year out, you look back and you just can't believe at the progress you've made, because it's small wins just stacked and just add up and multiply and compound. And that was really the message I wanted to send home with you guys, was make sure your values, attitudes, and beliefs create the identity that you want to have, because your identity will guide your behaviors subconsciously. And make sure you build that identity through whatever you can use as a tool to reinforce in your mind that you are that type of person. No more of this, I'm a slob and I'm okay with it, right? No, have some, like, whether that be cleaning your room or making your bed the first moment you wake up, or like maybe you just are, maybe you are a Slav and you want to clean up, right? Go shower, man. Shower all the time. Like, brush your damn teeth and take care of yourself, because once you start doing that, you gain momentum. And then before you know it, you just start adding to different things, and your life can completely change. It's up to you to do it. No one can do it for you, but those are the steps you have to take in order to get there. And like, for me personally, I'm not okay with just maintaining the linear uptrend, right? I need my life to go exponential. That's the kind of progress I'm looking for. In order to get that in the career I'm in, it takes an extreme, inordinate amount of discipline, focus, and self-work. And so that's where I'm at. I wanted to share with you guys because it's just my personal journey, right? And I think that if you guys can see that even I have to go through that, then it will, one, hopefully make you guys realize that I'm human, and you guys will probably end up having to go through the same thing. And I'm trying to just lay the groundwork for you guys so you can follow in footsteps and do the same thing for your lives, because trust me, it's all about happiness, right? It's all about fulfillment. It comes from growth and progress. So that's it, guys. We're gonna get into the disclaimer, and then we're gonna do the prep, and then we'll get the rest of our weekend kicked off. All right. As always, guys, neither I, TrueTrader, or any of our affiliates are licensed or registered as security broker dealers. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Nothing I talk about today is a solicitation to buy or sell any stocks. It's simply for entertainment purposes only. All right, guys. Here's the ES. Now, because that was such a long-winded intro, I've actually got a lot of notes, and I'm probably going to read a lot of things today just so I don't miss stuff. Let me get a drink of water real fast. Really got dry mouth from all that talking. All right, real fast note is that moving forward, just to keep things easier on me and faster and shorten these preps up a little bit, I'm no longer going to do the SPY and the NASDAQ. I'm just going to do the SPY because typically what happens is whatever I have, my thoughts about the SPY typically are the same for the NASDAQ. What I'm going to do is I'll do my SPY analysis the same way, like for the broader market, that I always do, and I will just simply make additional notes about the NASDAQ as needed. So that's going to be a change in the format moving forward, okay? All right, so let's start with the monthly chart, and let's see. So basically, barring any kind of crazy sell-off on Monday, we're looking at a really strong close on the monthly candle for October. And you know, we are right off the weekly, the monthly 50, which means for the last around 4 years, right, we're right around the 50%, like the half 50% retrace or average of what people have paid, which also means that this is about a 50% fib retrace of the COVID lows. Let's make sure. Okay, the monthly range, that's what I want to note, is still really wide, right? We're putting in every single month like 10 to 15% ranges, month to month, and that's crazy. And I still am a firm believer that if this market is going to, or if this bear market's going to end, I do believe we're going, and this is my opinion, remember guys, obviously I can be wrong, but I do have the opinion that the range is going to need to narrow, especially on the monthly candles, which if you zoom into a weekly or a daily, what that will look like is a big base being built. And from there, we can maybe make a push and try to get another bull market started. I do want to make a note, though, that I have this weird feeling that might happen, right? And I'll just kind of illustrate here with the brush tool, is if we start to kind of coil and narrow, what may happen and what very well could happen is we could have this breakout higher that looks like the beginning of a new bull market, and that brings in a ton of buyers, right? And what could happen is that could be the powder being loaded in the cannon for the next major leg down. So if we get this, and I don't mean to be doom and gloom, I just want to prepare people for expectations, right? So If that happens, we still can get long and have defined risk. And if the trend proves itself, stay in things. And I'm talking long-term accounts, right? IRAs, 401s, whatever you have. You know, you could put trades on and have defined risk. But if that were to happen and then we come and break these lows here, well, whoops, come and break these lows here, that would be what I think would get us a panic type sell-off. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Again, I just want to prepare people that if we develop a big base and then make a push and that push fails, that would be like the oh shit kind of moment. What is this? It's telling me the magnet is okay. There we go. No, I don't want that magnet. All right. Sorry, guys. TradingVue is always changing things in terms of, like, it's now giving me pop-ups to let me know something's happening. Doesn't matter. I don't need it. So that's it on the monthly. Let's check out the weekly chart. Why is... Hold on one second. There we go. All right. What did I write for the weekly? Okay, I did want to let you guys know that, so, you know, this big push up into the weekly 20 was triggered by a daily long trigger that had room back to the month or the weekly 20. You can't really see it on the ES daily chart. I'll go ahead and show you the daily real quick. It doesn't stand out on the daily, but it stood out like a sore thumb on the SPY, right? So this was the the break right here, actually on Thursday, October 20th, was the short continuation trigger to try to hold trend down, try to go back to lows. And literally the very next day was the follow through day, the opposite direction, which on Monday, the 24th, triggered the reversal. And trigger, target, next. You guys hear me say it all the time. All that means is, you know, we had a valid setup and it went straight to the target. Where are we at now? We're at that target. We're at the weekly 20. So we've seeked out bounce on this higher time frame. We have reached it, and just because we've now come into balance on this time frame, I want to be very clear that that doesn't mean I don't think we're going higher. If you look at the last 3 times we've tested the underside of the weekly 20, we did push through, right? Not so much on this one. I mean, we did, but nothing like we did here and here. Both times really did get through the weekly 20, but as we were talking about on all those Sunday preps, it doesn't matter if we go through the weekly 20. All that matters is what the author decides to do next on these higher time frames, right? So the fact that we closed on highs for the week and on Friday as well makes me think that there's a good chance we have some continuation further through. But near term, and I mean very near term, I feel that any move further higher, I'm still probably leaning towards the short side, just because, let's look at that. Let's go ahead and let me make sure I don't have any more notes on the weekly, because I don't really want to keep coming back to it. Let me see. I do. Okay, so what I wrote down is, like I always say, you're allowed to have an opinion on what will happen, but you need to have contingency plans for all the scenarios. So I do think that this would be the logical kind of area to see range contract. Like I said, we've had these really wide ranging months. I do think this is the logical kind of area to see if these pushes start to coil, start to compress, start to narrow the range. And I do see a very high probability of just sideways action for a while and building a base. Remember, triggers are triggers, targets are targets. If the author says lower and we start heading lower, follow the trend. But what I'm looking to see happen is see these lows hold, and maybe, anywhere up into the weekly 50 kind of put kind of a lid on it. Let me put a little, so between here and here, I think we could see a range, right? Just kind of sideways action. And if you guys need to understand what I mean by that, look at any Bitcoin chart, right? Like here's Bitcoin, just been stuck sideways in this range, right? And that's healthy. That's healthy because it takes a nice long base like this to build for a push in either direction, whether we want to go substantially lower, substantially higher. These bases like this give us a launch pad for either direction. So with the ES, I was on SPY, wasn't I? So I'm going to stay here on the ES. With the ES, I think we could have this range start to build. And as it contracts, or if it does start to, I would expect to start seeing it get narrower and narrower, and then we could have that situation which I drew out for you on the monthly chart play out. But this is a very logical place to see, for me, apparently, or not apparently, my words are not coming to me right now, but this is where I would expect to see this happen. It doesn't mean it will, but it just seems logical. Let me make sure before I move on from the weekly. All right, so let's get into the daily chart. Yeah, and so you can see we've just had this really big move right up into lots of resistance. You can see I already have my alerts set. We'll go over the alerts for resistance and support in a second. We're into the descending 50-day. You got the descending weekly 20. The trend is still down on the higher time frames, okay? As long as the author wants to hold that trend lower, he can. And we say this all the time, is like, don't ever think that something can't go lower, something can't go higher. Just trade what you see, what's in front of your eyes. The weekly chart, the monthly chart, they're all still in downtrends until we try to go lower and fail, right? So that's what you need to be watching for on that weekly time frame, is for that next short continuation setup. And if that fails, then we may have one of those situations where, one, you might have a chance to anticipate a higher low on the weekly chart, or at minimum set alerts for when that can actually reverse, and then we can start an uptrend on the weekly time frame. So let's just get into the levels of support and resistance. I'm going to go into an intraday time frame just so we can, let's look at it hourly. Now, granted, I don't know if we're going to gap up or gap down. We'll find out about Globex in a little bit. But remember, those Globex hours sometimes can be very misleading. So don't put too much weight in them. Wait till we see where we're at tomorrow morning. If we gap down, or I'm just going to say gap down. If we gap down, I'm using previous week's highs or Friday's highs slash 39.35 as my first level of resistance. Next level above that is 39.75. Now notice, you'll see on these charts, right, that is actually marked at 39.71. I tell you this every week. I just want to make sure you guys remember. I set my alerts before the level so that I'm alerted as we're moving into it, right? But you can see in the alerts, hopefully you guys can see that, it says right there the level that I'm actually looking at, 39.75. Above, and if you want to see why I have that level, let me zoom out a little and use the auto here. 39.75, you see where it lines up, these big old consolidation areas, and it actually goes quite a bit far back, but I do believe that's going to be a very good level of resistance to play against. Above that, 4,000 in the annual pivot, and then above that, 40.82. And I know people are like, well, the quarterly's at 40.87, and the 200-day, I like 40.82. My levels are my levels. You guys can, if you don't like them, you can have your own, and that's fine. Just make sure you have logic behind them, why you like them, okay? For support, I'd like this 38.95 level. I like it, but only really if we gap up, okay? If we don't gap up, I feel like that level's too close to give a crap about, okay? If we gap up, 38.95 is where I'm at. Below that's 38.70. Below that is 38.30, which, let me see. No, 38.30 is the next, and then this is the one, 38.90 is the one that I like, okay? I'm sorry, not 38.90, 37.90. I mistitled. Let me relabel this. I label it as 38, but it's 37. 37.90. You have that monthly pivot, this intraday uptrend that's been forming. Obviously, the 20 days just down there below it, and it will creep up, as the days go on. I really do like that level, and that's the level where if we pull back to those areas, that's where I really will start looking at some of my long ideas, okay? And as long as we're still kind of extended up like this, and any further push higher, mostly going to be leaning towards the short ideas, and that's just how those will be played out. Again, with NASDAQ, I'm not going to talk too much in depth about it. The NQ, I just wanted to point out that it has yet to push up into the underside of the weekly 20 like the S&P has. Look at a weekly here. You can see we still have some some room above on the NASDAQ. Why is that? Well, because you had so many of the big names last week get slaughtered on their earnings, right? Like if you look at this was Meta, right? Meta, and was Meta on its own on Wednesday evening? It may have been, but regardless, Thursday was a bloodbath in the NASDAQ because of Meta, right? And then you also had Amazon kind of take a shellacking, as well as Google. So that's kind of why NASDAQ's lagging. But what I wanted to point out is that it still had the trigger right here on Monday of last week that the S&P had, right? So you still have a valid trigger, and you still have a looming target, the weekly 20. So I do still think we'd go up there and test those levels. When we do, or when and if we do, that's when I'll probably start looking towards those short ideas on the tech names. Any kind of pullbacks towards this, well, I'm on the QQQs right now, but any pullbacks to the 20-day is where I'll probably be looking for long ideas in the tech sector or the NASDAQ. So that's the broader market. Let's do Bitcoin real quick because we always touch on that. I did want to point out, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. The last time I did a Sunday prep was this right here, this candle being the failed breakdown. And if you remember, we had some levels set. Right here was the short continuation trigger on this day, and it failed to get to new lows, and then curled up, and then the break over this, the trigger was 19954.14. Okay, and that was the long trigger. And what did it do? Trigger target next, straight to the weekly 20. So now what we're looking at here is basically above 25,214 and 57 cents. These long 5-figure numbers. Over that is what can get this really going, right? And you do, if you look at a monthly, you do have a lot of room up to the monthly 20. Okay. So basically, you can set your alerts up here over these levels. Whoops. I don't know where that just went. Just put send it. Again, these higher time frame triggers, even when they do trigger, I don't think it's something that just happens overnight. One, the trigger is really far away, right? We're talking way up here. And any kind of push up into those levels, the first push, especially if it gets there extended, it's probably going to fail. It's probably going to give a really good short opportunity. But if it can, grind up there, consolidate a little, break above it, come back, retest, a lot of stuff has to happen for it to develop, but it could get going after that. But remember, the higher the time frame we're talking about a setup being on, the longer it takes to unfold and to develop. So do not feel FOMO or this rush that you need to get involved in it immediately. Have patience. Wait for dips. Wait for better prices. You don't need to just see the trigger, take the trade, and then when it pulls back to better prices, you're the one freaking out and stopping out, right? Don't be that guy. All right, so sector analysis. I'm just going to try to go through these real quick. Let me look at the sector ETFs, and we'll take a quick look at bar chart. I don't know why it's not logged in. I'm not going to bother. We don't need it to log in to do this. Stock market sectors, matrix short term. All right, so lots of really strong sectors. Should be no surprise. But what sticks out like a sore thumb? The weakness. Consumer discretionary, energy a little bit, but communications was red, negative. Why? Now listen, you guys know I beat up on the comm sector every single week in the Sunday prep because it's just been so weak. I'm going to give them a little bit of a break this week because the reason they're beaten up so bad, or at least showing such weakness, was because you had Meta, Google, and a bunch of others in there that got smoked on earnings. And Meta and Google are such huge weightings for that sector. And if you guys don't know the names in there, obviously you can come in here and click there. You'll see, Meta right there, Google. I don't remember any others that reported that got smoked, but Meta and Google alone are enough to drag a sector down. Okay, so just understand when you see that weakness, take it with a grain of salt. All right, retail, and I'm just gonna try to keep this short and sweet, guys. 59.80 to the 20-day, somewhere in that 20-day area is where I'd be looking for longs. If those don't work, obviously this 57.50 area, and anything up into this 67.50 to 68 for fades. Okay, financials. I think they're really strong. I think they're behaving well. I do think dips back down to 32.40, 32.50. Good scoop opportunities for individual names in that sector. But if it were to just keep ripping, I think anywhere into that 36 level first test is good for fades. I just wrote meh for real estate. Not a sandbox I'm playing in. Yes, it reclaimed a level. I don't care. I think it's kind of in no man's land up into the 50-day maybe for fades if you do want to play this sector. Maybe into the 20-day for getting long exposure. But again, not a sector I'm playing in. Healthcare, I think it's been behaving phenomenally since it had this push up. A lot of individual names really behaving well. I do think that 134 level we've discussed at large for I think the length of this bear market. Still think it gives it trouble, but I think if it can reclaim it and test from above and hold, you might get another leg up. I do think dips. Let me make sure I quote you right on the dip level. I didn't write a level down. I just said that even though I know that 134 level may give it problems, I still am more long bias on this sector. So if I had to give you levels, it's retest of this 130 area. Okay. Materials. Kind of no man's land here. I think 71's the 20-day basically for longs. You see how it lines up with this support level as well as the 20-day and your monthly pivot. 78.50 to 79 for fades. Industrials really strong, really good relative strength. Straight up into the underside of the 200-day. I think you gotta let it have a breather first if you were trying to get long anything in this sector. I think any further pushes up give fades. Obviously, you have quite a few levels up here. This 97.50 and 98.50, but anything back down to this 89 area, I think is good for dips. Utilities. This is the one I wanted to kind of point out something about. I'm not a fan of megaphone action. What do I mean by megaphone? I think a lot of people would probably just call it like a broadening wedge. Anytime you see like this and this, okay, that's like a megaphone, right? I think the only way this resolves that is any sort of conducive price action that I could trade or be willing to put money on is if this eventually ends up putting in a more longer term lower high. So I'm looking at this weekly 20 and weekly 50 up here, 70.50. Any kind of push up into there, I'm thinking fade, and I want to see that put in a lower high in terms of looking like this. Let me just try and draw it for you real fast. Dang it, drag this over. Basically something like this, push up into here, maybe something like that, and then I want to see these lows get broken, right? Otherwise, we may just be holding this megaphone price action, which I don't like trading it. And it's, if you like it, by all means, have fun trading it. But for me personally, that's not the kind of price action I like. And I will show you guys, I do have a utilities name in the list this week. Staples, big move up. Let's look at the daily here. I think the 200-day is going to be a great spot to kind of look to fade. It may push a little bit through up into the 75 level, which is going to line up with this trend line here. Again, trend lines for me, I'm not just going to short any kind of spike right up into a trend line. They're visual guidelines. If we pop up there, start seeing lower highs, something to risk against, that's where I get involved. I don't, I'm not looking at a trend line as like it needs to hold to the penny. Okay. 69.50 would be the area to probably look at this for dip buys. Discretionary, very weak in terms of relative weakness or relative strength and weakness, right? Very weak. Did not really participate in the rally like the rest of the market. Is that all I wrote for that one? Let me see. 150 for fades, 133 for scoops, but I would, on longs, like this 133 level down here, if I was trying to get long on dips, I wouldn't overstay because of the relative weakness. Communication sector, again, the redheaded stepchild of the sectors that's just been getting shellacked for the whole bear market. Just extreme relative weakness. ever since back in, it's almost been, it's been over a year, that's crazy. And why do I say that? Because the bear market started in January or something, but this thing has been weak since late August, early September of 21. But again, keep in mind, a lot of that had to do with Meta and Google. Biotechs, I think this is behaving very well. I really do think we keep holding these levels, and I think that we could get this weekly trigger, out of, actually, we did trigger on Friday. I would be looking for dips to scoop, because I think we can finally break out of this long-term downtrend that this thing's been in, right? And once we get out of that, I would be looking for dips to hold. No different than like when we finally had this reversal trigger down here. What happened? Dips started holding. Dips hold. So if we start pushing, reminds me a lot of XOP when it was coming out of this, right? Guys, study these things, because these chart patterns are very repeatable, right? Big long-term downtrend, you get the reversal on a higher time frame, and then once we break out of that, dips start to hold. And what do? You get a nice long uptrend, and even in a bear market, something that was playable, right? So that's exactly what I think could be happening on XBI. Does it have to happen? Could I be wrong? Of course I could be wrong. I don't, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about being able to structure an if-then statement and be able to create a trade plan based on it. Tech, let me go back to the daily. Really strong day on Friday with the way Apple moved. Apple was up like 7 or 8%, right? So obviously a lot of that had to do with this. I think up into the weekly 20 is where I look to start fading names in this sector. Make sure that if you are shorting or buying a name in this sector, make sure you know when they're reporting their earnings. Okay, a lot of names are reporting this week, next week. We're really getting this earnings season rolling. So do not get blindsided, guys. You have no excuse. This is your business. Energy, weekly. Actually, no, month. This is one thing I wanted to point out. We had a monthly trigger here on both XLE and XOP, which is extremely impressive because of how heavy it had been and how hard it had been fighting to reclaim certain levels. So even though we had, and if you guys don't know these triggers yet, I'll draw them out here just for the people that maybe are joining us for the first time. You can see them down here, but there was another one right here. Here's your higher low, and then the break of this here, and the target is up here, okay, to continue trend, because it's in an uptrend. The only way things can trend higher is by making higher lows and higher highs, and this is how this is how you get continuation. So this setup here gets you back up to here. If it doesn't, then you get the failed long trigger, and we always say failed triggers create the best, most powerful triggers in the opposite direction, right? So if this does not get back up to these highs and then comes back under these levels, under 65.30s, watch out, okay? That could be the end of this nice long uptrend we've been in. But as long as we get back up to those highs, this thing could start to continue, and we might even try to push up to this 101 level. You have the same setup on XOP, okay? And it's even a tighter, more beautiful setup than the one that was on XLE. And just look at how perfect it occurred off this trend line, right? Really a beautiful setup here. So higher low, the break of this level here is your trigger, and here's your target. And it, we have resistance levels we're heading up to, but look at what we're looking at. This is a monthly chart. We zoom back out to a daily, and you'll realize that, getting up to here is one thing. That would be like definitely first level of real resistance that I would be playing against. But then you have this looming area up here, which is from way back here, which has been resistance, 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 resistance. So anything up into those 180s, 183s or whatever, that would be me probably, especially if we get there extended. That would be where I start looking for fades. But right now, the trend is up. Remember, path of least resistance, guys. Do not fight the short side on oil and energy names when it's one. They're two of the very few sectors in clear uptrends during this bear market, right? We always tell people, pick the low-hanging fruit. Don't try to get the jaguar out of the tree, right? And that is it for the sector analysis. Let's get right into the names and then we'll end this. I know it's been a long one, guys, and I apologize, but I thought it was a pretty important topic to cover this morning. Or today, I don't know why I said this morning. Let's get into the long setup. Strong stocks looking for continuation. The first thing I'm looking at is Roblox. I would love a flush down to this quarterly pivot slash 20-day, 50-day, weekly 20. Anywhere 41 to 40 80s, I think is good for some scoops. They report next week on the 9th, but it's always a good trader. Like literally has range and volume, and almost $3 range on a $45 stock. There's moves in there. There's money to make. The one thing I do think that might happen is it might actually end up bouncing way before that. I'm thinking 43.50s. You can see them right here. These kind of recent highs here. Anywhere in here might be where it bounces from. So if it flushes down there Monday morning emotionally, I mean like real fast, hard, emotional, and it comes right into these levels, I'd probably be taking the bounce play there. If it doesn't work, I have no problems. You guys heard me say this a million times. I have no problem stopping out and reassessing and take my next shot down into this 41 area where that quarterly pivot is, and you see all these recent lows that bounced, okay? But I do like Roblox for a long. The next one is Intel. This name held up really well after their earnings, which, and I like this daily chart. We kind of been joking about it because Intel has been just so weak. And here was your .com bubble. Look at where it came down to. We're literally talking levels from 1997, okay? And a lot of us were joking because, when you're coming out of a bear market, a lot of times it's not the recent or the previous bull market's leaders that turn into the new leaders. So things like Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, the names that were the leaders, Google, all during the last bull market, a lot of people are going to maybe miss some really big trades because they're going to be focused on those, and that might not be the next leaders of the next bull market. And I was joking, I was like, what if it's something like Intel, right? Because they've got a lot, they've got a lot of experience, and they're well capitalized as a company. There's nothing stopping them from reinventing themselves. Like, think about Apple. Apple went through a really, really ugly period of its company history, and they reinvented themselves. That's something that could happen with Intel. I'm not saying it does or whatever, but I love the way this daily chart's kind of set up down here off these lows, and it got that move off earnings. And what you get is when you get a move like this on earnings, and people know that it's a company like Intel that it's just been hella weak, they probably think it's a big easy short. And it closes on highs like that. So what I'm looking for come tomorrow is profit takers. And the thing is when you get a strong close like this, there's probably people that were shorting this thinking this dip right here was it, and it's going to roll over and die. And then it pushes back up. People short, oh, it's going to roll over and die. And then what do? They save it and they close it on highs. This probably has some shorts a little bit upside down in it. Maybe it gaps up a little and pushes a bit, but I'm thinking any kind of dip down to 28.60 for scoops, thinking you get some profit taking, and at these levels down here you get shorts trying to fight for covers. Now a lot of people would say, well, what if that level doesn't work? Would you want to buy it down here off like this weekly and this monthly pivot? No. In a situation like this, the idea is that some shorts are stuck a bit, and that any kind of profit taking in the morning on Monday gives these shorts that are stuck a little bit of a chance to cover, and the ones that don't might regret it. So what I'm looking for is just maybe a small gap up, maybe a small push, but a quick little flush down to 28.60, scoop, have some tight risk, and see if it can squeeze out, and have the people that decided to wait around and see, let's just see if it comes lower. Maybe they're stuck from lower prices, and if that happens, and granted, look, it's not a name that has a ton of range, $1.15 range, but if we can get 28.60s and they hold, I think this thing could squeeze out into 30 to 31, right? So I mean, $1.50, $2 on a $30 stock is a nice gain, especially for a day trade. So that's what I'm looking for on Intel. That's it for strong stocks looking for continuation, and it's actually it for long ideas, because the oversold reversion setups, the only thing that really was standing out as oversold was like Meta. Not really interested in it. You know, FedEx is kind of like curling around down here. I'm not a fan of the liquidity on FedEx, not for day trades at least. I think if you wanted to build a swing position and you had an idea like it's gonna maybe come back up into these 193s, that might be something you could look at. But as far as oversold reversion setups, I have nothing for this week. So we're gonna get right into the short setups. The first thing I'm looking at is NEE, N-E-E, and like I said, I had a utilities play, and that's this one. So remember what I said about utilities, XLU, right? Anything up into these, look at the weekly, I think it was 70.50. Yeah, 70.50 on the weekly chart on XLU. I want to put in a longer term lower high and see this thing start to roll back over. So NEE, if that were to happen, I think any kind of push up into these levels is going to be a really good fade. I wrote down 82 to 82.60. You can see it a lot better on the daily chart here. The 50-day, and then you have the monthly pivot up at 82.59. So this kind of little range here. Any kind of like further pop up on NEE, and I'm looking to fade that. Now there's a lot of other names in this sector, but this one's got relatively better liquidity, right? Traded 9 million shares on Friday. You look at things like DUK or XEL, and you're looking more towards like the 3 million, 2 million shares per day type stuff. And they have levels to play against, but if the sector runs into resistance and they all roll over, you're going to want the one that has the liquidity and range. Remember that, guys. I think that was what we talked about 2 weeks ago in the Sunday prep. The next idea for short ideas for short weak stocks looking for continuation, Snow. Snow, I'm looking for 169. So any kind of pop back up into these levels up here. I was actually hoping on Friday. You see we opened at 162.70s or whatever. I was hoping on Friday it was just going to push up into those levels. It didn't. It sold off, but we got to bounce. So I don't think it's going to get up to 169 on Monday. It could. I mean, it's $11 range on this stock, okay? It's not that it can't, but it's not coming off my watch list till maybe the end of the week. It might come lower and then grind up into those levels, but that 169 level is where I'm looking to fade Snow. Overbought reversion. So that's all for weak stocks looking for continuation. Next section is overbought reversion setups. The first name I'm looking at is AGCL, I believe. No, ACGL. Yeah. Okay. Now, it doesn't typically trade a lot of liquidity, right? You can see it's usually around like sub 2 million shares per day. But it did, it had earnings on Thursday. I think it was Thursday after the bell. But then the liquidity came in. It was super liquid on Friday. Traded like 13 million shares. So I do have a disclaimer with this one. But I wrote down stalking this for lower highs, something to risk against with set risk. I would love to see it get another leg higher up into 60. But just keep in mind, if the liquidity dies off, it's probably going to be something where it falls off my watch list. But if it's liquid, I'm interested. All right. If it's going to trade 4 to 5 million shares on Monday and it can get a push and start to stuff, I'll probably get involved in this one. That's the idea on ACGL. The next idea is Gilead, G-I-L-D, and this kind of sucks because I had this on watch for a few weeks ago and took my eye off the ball. But this thing has a 1.25 billion share float. Look at the move this thing has put in. 84 to 85 without a pullback would be an absolute gift in my opinion. Look back to these levels, see where these levels are coming from. It's not just the pivots that obviously you have a quarterly and annual pivot up there, but look at these. Actually, I'm just going to use a rectangle tool here. This whole little range up here where you had those highs, okay? So this is not, even though it's a 52-week breakout, it's not like it's all-time highs or anything. In fact, if we go back even further, you can see that these levels have been just really key levels for a long time, okay? So any kind of push up into there is where I'm really, really looking to fade Gilead, especially with a float that big, right? This thing is going to take a lot to get up there, but I really do think that I'm probably going to be settling for something like 81, 82. I don't know if it's got much more gas in the tank. We'll see, but I am stalking this one, okay? And the last name on this list is IBM. I would love to see this parabolic into this 144 area. Obviously, you know, I do want to know if we get above 146 for a longer term type idea, which is the finally breaking out of this downtrend, right? But when we zoom into the daily chart and see the move this thing's made, anything in the 144 is going to have my mouth watering. But it's almost another billion share float. It's, I think, 900 million shares in the float on this. It's not something that is going to be able to continue this move super easy. So like if it were to get any further up, I'm looking for any signs of weakness to fade IBM. Now I do have what I consider like a special situation, because it's not a day trade and it's just something that I'm keeping on my watch, but it's CFLT. And remember what we were talking about, like the new leaders of the next bull market might not be the Amazons, Googles, Apples, Microsofts, you know, yada yada yada. So these newer companies, these newer IPOs over the last 2-3 years, the ones that can survive, like the higher rates, you know, like we're in a tightening phase where capital is more expensive, and if they're able to still be, and I'm not saying these guys are profitable, they're not yet, but if they're able to survive that environment, when the dust settles and other competitors die off and have to close shop, these guys are stronger and better positioned for it. And so these are the kinds of names that you should be kind of getting familiar with, starting to stalk the charts. And I'm not saying we're at the end of a bear market at all. Remember, the higher time frames are still in a downtrend, but I do like the way this is setting up. You know, we've built this really nice long base, and so I've got an alert set for over, let's see, the level is 2842, so over 2850, right? And the idea is over 2850, and I'm looking to kind of buy dips and start building into a swing position on this, because I just like this setup. I don't think it's far-fetched to think this thing's coming back up to 38, possibly even up here at 44, and who knows if it starts to develop an uptrend where it could go to, right? But just keeping it on radar. It's what I consider a special situation. It's not for a day trade, but keeping it on watch, just throwing it out there for you guys. So I'm going to see if there's any questions, and then we're going to wrap up for the day. So this is from KH. What do you think taking Microsoft long to 260 or 245 at least? I don't know, man. Microsoft just we're getting smoked. It had a big rally on Friday. I think a lot of it had to just do with people seeing the strength in Apple and thinking, okay, the market's not going to continue to sell off. You know, it wouldn't surprise me to see us get back up into the 50-day, 248, 249. I don't know about 260. I mean, I don't want to write anything off. Like I always say, I'm not going to tell you have a bad idea. The only bad idea is one where you don't have a plan, okay? So what if you want to know my idea on this? To me, there's no trade here. I think there's a short on it if we come up to 250 hard. That's my idea. I'm not trying to put swing long trades on names like this while we're still in this bear market. And, you know, as things change in the broader market, we'll discuss that as it unfolds in future Sunday preps, right? We already did that one Sunday prep where, you know, I was kind of getting ready to possibly anticipate higher lows, but we're not there right now. We've just pushed up into the weekly 20 on the S&P. So the next step is for us to have a short continuation trigger where price tries to go lower. And if it does that and fails, then maybe we can start anticipating for longs for swings. But right now, and the only way to even think about Microsoft going back to 245 or 260 is to swing it, right? It's not going back there tomorrow, and it's not something that would day trade for that kind of big of a move, right? If I was looking to get long Microsoft, the way I'd be doing it is be looking at these these recent levels. Obviously, we held this 230 area a few times, and now we've reclaimed it. I'd watch to see if 230 holds, because obviously once we lost it, it became resistance from underside. Now we've reclaimed it, so I'd like to see what happens on the first retest of 230. You know, from 236 down to 230, if it flushed there emotionally, I would buy Microsoft in the blink of an eye for a bounce trade, for a day trade. But if I buy it at 230 and it pops back up to 232, 233, 234, I'm scaling out, and I'd be flat by 234. And, you know, if it goes to 245 or 260, I'm not going to be mad at myself, right? I'm a day trader, and I'm not putting these longer term trades on. So for me, if I day trade on Microsoft, it's buying an emotional flush, or possibly seeing some sort of pullback to support and then a trend day form, but that's a different story. Cage just said, what do you think of Twitter and Tesla? Do you think, well, Twitter's a buyout, so there's nothing to do with Twitter. Do you think we see Tesla go lower now that Elon has to pay for Twitter? I have no idea. You know that he's got banks helping finance it, and I haven't looked too much into it. Obviously, there was a big sell-off on Friday where we were kind of like, we didn't see news on Tesla, and we were kind of in the room asking about it. My idea was, you know, I thought maybe people were scared he was selling stock, or maybe he was selling stock. Regardless, you won't know for a few days and he'll file Form 4s. But, you know, it bounced. Like, Tesla bounced on Friday and closed pretty strong, right? So if he was selling, he didn't sell for too long, because it got a quick bounce and it closed right back up at those highs, right? Dude, KH, you asking me about the same stocks every day. Baba's dead to me. Baba is completely dead to me. Honest to God, like, these Chinese names, you cannot be, there's just too much uncertainty around them, and you never know. Like, so many things could happen, including delisting from the US stock exchanges, which, you know, if that happens, you get nothing. So I just can't advise people be longing these Chinese companies, even if you know that they're not lying on their balance sheets, or like, even if they're not, right? Like, even if they're on the up and up, 100% squared up, dude, that doesn't matter if they get delisted. That doesn't matter if China invades Taiwan and Biden all of a sudden does something, you know, to retaliate. Like, dude, hands off on the Chinese stuff, guys. Javier, thoughts on Rivian long at 32.90s? I probably like it. Let's see here. 34.40, what's the range on it? It's probably 2.2. Yeah. Dude, yeah. Spot on, man. Like, look at so many levels of confluence, right? The weekly 20, the daily 20, the annual pivot, and the quarterly pivot. Like, yeah. But it might be prepared that if it does do that, it might come a little lower, and I wouldn't want to get shook out on it if the idea was still going to work, because what is this level right here? Here's your lows. Here's your push up. Here's your short continuation trigger and the failed breakdown. So this 32.31 is a retest of that break, right? So definitely set alerts there. I'll go ahead and set an alert. And in fact, I'm going to do it on the intraday so I don't, if it comes pre-market, I get it. Yeah, but you know, if it flushes through those levels, don't take your eyes off the ball, because it still may bounce just a little bit lower, right? Cristobal says, Intel went up due to the sale of Mobileye. It will be short-lived. For a quick trade, no problem. No reinvention happening. What do you think about Snap? Listen, I don't want to argue about what caused something, because, to be fair, like, we've talked about this before, and that is that you could put 20 analysts in a room, show them a chart of a company that they know, like, all the fundamentals about, all the inner workings of, like, the spinoff of Mobileye, and what their revenues were for the last quarter, year over year, and all that stuff. And you could have all 20 analysts give you 20 different opinions, and still could have all 20 of them be wrong. Like the only thing I care about is the price action in the chart, right? So, and again, like I appreciate you pointing out the fact that like for a trade, fine, because that's all I'm talking about is a trade, right? I think shorts might be a little stuck because it closed on highs, and people were thinking, you know, exactly what you're kind of pointing out about Intel is that it's junk, right? So when you get that kind of negative bias towards a company and then it has a day like it did on Friday, I feel like there's the ability for any kind of early scoop or flushes to get bought up as shorts, kind of like, shit, let me get out of this trade that I swung on Friday. Snap, what was the question about? What do I think about Snap? God, I think it's dead in the water. I'm super surprised that it moved back up and closed this gap, kind of. I mean, obviously there's still a little bit of upside room to the day before the sell-off from earnings, but I had an alert set up there to fade this. It expired, so it's not there anymore. But I would probably fade it into 11. The only thing, and as long as you're just day trading it, this probably doesn't matter, right? But if you're like involved in something like Snap, swing trading it, dude, I don't know why I feel this way, but I worry about something that gets this cheap and still has such a big user base that somebody just looks at it as like a acquisition candidate. And even if it's just a rumor, right? You could be short this and a rumor hits or chatter and it just rips and bends you over, and that'd be what I worry about. But if you're day trading it, you're usually okay, especially if you just are super disciplined and you stick to your risk levels, right? But I'm still extremely short biased on it, and if I feel like Snap doesn't get acquired, I think it's a donut. I feel like it's going to zero. And again, that's just my opinion, guys. Don't freak out about it or whatever. I'm wrong all the time. KH asking if I'm still short FSLR. No. When I trade FSLR, it's a day trade. I was pointing out the fact that it had room to the weekly 20, but I never once swung FSLR short. Just because I talk about where it, like what the higher time frames are setting up and doing, and it doesn't, I mean, the trade's still kind of playing out, right? Like we had a big move down. This thing came down to 116s. And, you know, for all we know, this puts in a lower high up here, rolls over, and still comes down to the weekly 20. But, you know, I'm day trading it, okay? Make sure you guys understand that. Just because I talk about higher time frames and where I think something can go, it's so that I can develop a directional bias and create plans so I can trade it. I'm not I'm not swing trading FSLR, guys. Raphael, how about AMD earnings Tuesday, shorting AMD? Well, I'm never going to carry it into the numbers. So AMD, like I trade it all the time. It's very liquid, has a lot of range, right? $3.50 on a $60 stock, and it trades 80 million shares a day. Love trading this thing. But I'm not going to short it into earnings. If the numbers come out, and it has a setup after hours and it's got the liquidity, I will trade it, but not something I would ever carry into the event. But I appreciate you bringing that up, because that was one thing I forgot to say about this CFLT, is that they report on, let me look at my notes. I can't believe I forgot to say this. On 11/2 after the bell, which is Tuesday, right? So Tuesday, I think it's Tuesday. Let me make sure. No, Wednesday after the bell, guys. Wednesday after the bell, these guys report. And I think if this is going to trigger, it very well may happen from the numbers. And this goes perfectly with what I was just saying with AMD. I'm not going to put a position on heading into the numbers, but I will be watching when the numbers are released. And if this triggers, I will probably put at least a starter on and you know, let it close as long as it doesn't come back. So as long as it doesn't do one of those earnings things where you see it rip on the numbers and then go red on it, right? So if it goes green and then goes red, I would be gone. I would stop out of the trade, take my loss, move on. But if it goes green and I put the trade off a starter and it closes strong, then I wake up the next morning looking for this thing to hold levels and give possibility of adding into more of a, probably like a half size position. You know, like when I say a starter on earnings, it's probably going to be like 1/8, and then like the next morning, if it behaves well, probably add up to like a quarter position, and maybe if it's really behaving well, add up into like a half full size. But thank you for reminding me with your AMD question. That is, when it comes to earnings, right? I'm not going to carry anything into the numbers. All right, guys, that's it for the prep. I'm going to let everybody enjoy the rest of their weekend. I appreciate you guys joining and watching live. Make sure you leave comments and stuff, because I like the feedback. I like to know what you guys like to see more of. Remember, guys, make sure your values, attitudes, and beliefs are aligned with your goals, because they form your identity, and your identity dictates your behavior subconsciously. And you guys got to make sure that there's none of this internal conflict, right? And progress is the key to happiness. Growth and progress. If you don't understand any of the concepts we went over today, join us over at TrueTrader.net. There is a coupon you can use. I think it's YouTube in all caps. It'll give you like 25% off, I believe. And if not, I'll see you in the markets Monday. I hope it's not your money I'm taking.